Chen Man was born in February 1963 to a military family in Mianzhu County located in China's Sichuan province, and was the third eldest child in the family. After being rejected twice, Chen gave up on the college entrance exam and began work at the Mianzhu Industrial and Commercial Bureau's recruitment examination, where he stayed for 2 years. On April 13, 1988, the Chinese government elected to separate the island of Hainan from Guangdong province, and in order to increase investment and internal immigration to the strategic and valuable island, Hainan was made into its own province and given designated a special economic zone, further incentivizing immigration and tourism, as the island is known for its beaches and warm temperature. This plan worked, as in the immediate aftermath 100,000 people from other provinces began flocking to the newly created island province in search of work and opportunities. One of these men was Chen Man, who resigned from his job against his father's advice and used his saved money to travel to Hainan. In Hainan, he started a business with 8 of his fellow villagers and opened up a restaurant in the capital city, Haikou. After the restaurant, he entered the intermediary and decoration industry. Zhang Zuokyun was born in 1946 and was also a native of Sichuan province, specifically from the city of Guangdong. Zhang was an employee of Light Chemical Textile Company Limited and graduated from the Chengdu College of Traditional Chinese Medicine in 1986. Zhang met a woman at a cotton spinning factory and quickly fell in love with her, with the two getting married. Dan had 2 daughters. Zhang was transferred by the company to Hainan and lived in a 3-story housing area in Xingpaxia village, purchased by the company itself. Xingpaxia was just outside city limits but still fell under the jurisdiction of Haikou. The company later pulled out of Hainan, but Zhang remained in order to manage the business locally. Chen and Zhang's paths crossed in January 1992, when he first moved into the neighborhood. Everyone, including Chen, got along well with their new neighbor Zhang and regularly sat and drank with him, since he was easy to get along with. The peaceful and friendly atmosphere soon took a turn when police raided the property and arrested 2 neighbors for fraud named Hongwu and Chen Mahui. The fraud was concerning contracts, and Chen and Hu suspected Zhang of stealing them. Not long afterwards, Chen Maohui's father attempted to enter Chen Man's room to look for the contract. Mutable people lived in the house, only to be blocked by Zhang, who denied him access and told him it was impossible for him to enter since Chen was still renting the room. The two got into a verbal argument which lasted around half an hour before the father left. Upon hearing of this incident, Chen felt unsafe and on December 17 moved away to Binhai village, also under Haikou's jurisdiction, and never returned, since he was scared that someone would be looking or waiting for him there. Another reason behind his move was his own financial disagreements with Zhang, such as rent prices and failure to pay on time. On December 25, 1992, at 8 p.m., firefighters from the Haikou Fire Brigade responded to reports of housing area number 109 in Xingpaxia village suddenly burst into flames. Luckily, it was raining that night, so the firefighters quickly extinguished the flames. While searching the home for any lingering fires, they entered the first-floor bedroom and discovered the charred corpse of a man. The firefighters examined the body and realized that smoke inhalation wasn't the cause of death, since the first thing they took note of was the fact that his carotid artery had been severed. Blunt force wounds were observed on the body, and blood was present on the walls and floor of the room. In the southeast corner of the living room, blood splatter was observed on the walls and a cabinet. Another item the firefighters discovered was 3 shattered beer bottles on the ground. In the southwest corner of the living room, mutable chairs and tables were overturned, and blood-soaked toilet paper was recovered. A scattered matchbook was recovered in this section of the room. Other items of note were ripped up and bloody newspaper and a pair of black trousers. Based on the blood splatter, broken bottles and overturned furniture, it was believed that the man fought with his attacker. Based on the scene that greeted them, the firefighters soon contacted the police, who started a murder investigation. The murder weapon was determined to be an old meat cleaver, which inflicted a 9 centimeters long and 4 centimeters wide wound to his neck, and according to firefighters, the cause of the sudden fire was a gas tank, which the killer moved to the bedroom door and intentionally ignited. The police's first step was to identify the body. They searched through the man's clothing to see if any of his personal effects may have survived the fire, and discovered an identification card belonging to 29-year-old Chen Man in the pocket of his trousers. The police considered Chen to be their victim, but in order to formally identify him, they tracked down a man named Wang Qiang, who was from the same village and went to high school with Chen. Wang was one of the 8 who left for Hainan with him. Man knew Chen well. Wang saw the body, and although the face was unrecognizable and burned, the corpse still did not match Chen's physique. Wang instead identified the body as 46-year-old Zhang Zuokyun. Just to be sure, the police had Zhang's wife look at the body, and one positively identified the body as her husband based on a distinctive mole on his stomach. Based solely on Chen's card being in his possession, Chen went from being the victim to the police's #1 suspect, and they worked quickly to track him down. On December 27, the police went to Chen's workplace and arrested him for homicide while he was in the middle of playing mahjong with his co-workers. The police wasted no time in questioning Chen in order to get a confession. They handcuffed him to a steel pole before interrogating him. According to Chen, on December 24th, he spent the night at Zhang's house for the first time since moving out. Afterwards, he went to the at the time under construction Nington building to check on the workers on the morning of December 25. After leaving the building, he had to walk home as his bicycle keys were missing. He returned to the home at 12 p.m. and had lunch with Zhang before leaving, since Zhang had personal affairs to attend to that afternoon. From 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Zhang was at the Nington building construction site, which he claimed to be his alibi. Due to the personal affairs mentioned, Chen believed that Zhang was moving back to Sichuan, so after work he went to a food stall and purchased a lot of food in order to see Zhang off on his way home. On the morning of December 26, he went to the construction site as usual. He also told police about the story with Chen Maoi's father. Chen was ruthlessly interrogated without a lawyer, and on January 6, 1993, Chen confessed after the torture with the methods the police employed, consisting of strangling him with a rope until just before he passed out, beating his joints with sticks and steel rods which led to permanent scars, depriving him of sleep, and dousing him with freezing cold water, and subjecting him to blasts of cold air. Wang Qiang, when he heard about Chen's confession, couldn't believe it and quickly contacted Chen's family back in Sichuan. His family was convinced of his innocence and used all of their money to travel to Hainan. They visited their son in detention, and he tearfully told them that he was innocent. According to police, Chen's motive was over a dispute with Zhang involving 2,000 yuan in rent money, which Wang and Chen's family thought was ridiculous because Chen already had more than enough money and was great friends with Zhang. Nevertheless, in March 1993, the police handed the case over to the prosecutor, who agreed to charge Chen with intentional homicide. According to the case, Chen wanted to settle this alleged debt dispute, so he went to the home and was invited in by Zhang. He pretended to have a talk with Zhang before entering the kitchen and picking up the cleaver and suddenly swinging it into Zhang's neck, causing him to die of hemorrhagic shock. Chen then turned on the gas and ignited it in order to burn the body and destroy all traces of evidence. Chen's family worked to make sure he received representation, and they managed to hire a lawyer named Cao Zheng. Cao fought his hardest to ensure Chen's acquittal. Chen's trial began on March 23, 1994, and was held at the Haikou City Intermediate People's Court. Chen pled not guilty. Cao first attacked the limited physical evidence. The prosecution's main evidence was Chen's confession, and beyond that, they didn't have much else. Chen also confessed multiple times, and in his first confession, he claimed to use a machete and cut Zhang on the neck with it 2-3 times. Chen then amended his statement to say that he used a meat cleaver, which the police and prosecution presented to the court as the murder weapon. The cleaver, however, was inconsistent with the next wounds, old and covered with rust, and no blood was found on the blade. Furthermore, in his confession, Chen said that he used his right hand with the blade, but all of Chen's family, friends, and acquaintances testified that Chen was left-handed and only used his right hand for writing. On the topic of Chen's confession, he gave 3 different confessions, all of which had contradictions. According to the transcripts of the interviews, the start time was not recorded, and the police lied to Chen about the courts treating him leniently if he confessed. Cao also told the court about the argument Chen Maoi's father had with Zhang, and how the police ignored this lead when Chen told the police about this incident. And lastly, there was Chen's identification card, more specifically a work permit found on Zhang's body. The police considered this damning evidence and were the reason why Chen was even a suspect to begin with. According to the police, Chen planted the card on Zhang's body to mislead investigators and possibly fake his death so that nobody would come looking for him to claim any unpaid debts, which Chen attested to in his second confession. Cao raised several objections to the theory. To begin with, even though the police say that Chen did this to fake his death, he never fled and continued showing up to work and in public after Zhang's murder. Another issue Cao raised to the court was the fact that if Zhang's body was burned with the car in his pockets, then the card should be burned as well. Also, if Chen, as he claimed, placed the card in Zhang's pockets after killing him, then Chen's fingerprints and Zhang's blood should have been on the card, but none of this was noted in police and forensic reports. No footprints belonging to Chen were also found at the scene. 30 witnesses were called who all testified that Chen had time to commit the crime and behaved abnormally after the crime. Chen played mahjong with his co-workers starting at 6 p.m. on December 25th, and according to police and the prosecution, Chen left at some point during the game, and during this time murdered Zhang. They called two main witnesses to attest to this, and they were from a worker named Zhang Yuxing, who said that Chen was sometimes in rooms 702 and 703, and that he believed he was at the Nington building, but that everyone was too focused on the game to pay attention to him. The other main witness was Yang Zichen, the sales manager, who said that he believed Chen to be in his company when they heard the fire trucks drive by. Chen cross-examined the two and pointed out that if Chen was with the group when the fire trucks were en route, that would mean he had an alibi. Regrettably, Cao couldn't save Chen, as on November 9, 1994, the court found Chen guilty and sentenced him to death with 2 years reprieve, meaning that if during those 2 years he worked in prison, performed deeds of merit, behaved well, or exposed other people's crimes, his sentence would be automatically reduced to life after those 2 years. Chen missed his deadline to appeal, and thus it was too late for him, or at least he thought, because Chen's situation would improve ever so slightly, and from the last person he ever expected. The prosecutor was outraged by Chen's sentence, and felt that due to the nature of the crime, Chen should be given a regular death sentence and executed immediately. Thus, he filed an appeal. The appeal was accepted, and on August 26, 1998, the Hainan Provincial Higher People's Court held a second trial, and the prosecutor presented a new witness. The witness was Yu Yueshi, an officer from the Haikou Zhendong Public Security Bureau. He testified that in January 1993, he witnessed Chen drawing a map and schematic of the crime scene. The officer was, however, the same one who interrogated Chen and by extension tortured him. Chen's attorney told the court about an anonymous phone call he received before the appeal trial, and the caller said, "Don't ask me who I am, I'll tell you, we have someone in the Public Security Bureau to bear false witness." He was transferred to the Public Security Bureau only in August, and he testified that Chen Man drew the site plan, which he saw with his own eyes. His attorney then accused Yu of perjury, and in open court criticized the prosecutor for bringing a false witness to court. Nobody, not even Yu or the prosecution, disputed the defense's claim. On April 15, 1999, the court rejected Yu as a witness and his testimony, declaring them invalid. They also rejected the prosecutor's appeal and upheld the original death with 2 years sentence. Since 2 years had passed since the sentence was handed down, Chen's sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. In their attempts to get Chen executed as quickly as possible, they ended up saving his life. In the years that followed, Chen and his family would spend years filing appeals and complaints with Chen, writing a 25-page long appeal detailing the torture the police put him through to extract a confession out of him, and sending it to the Supreme People's Court, the National People's Congress, the National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, and the Central Political and Legal Committee. Chen would occasionally use the prison phone to tell his family that he was safe, while his parents used all their money and resources to work on Chen's case, sending letters of complaints and appeals on a consistent basis, to the point where Chen's mother had to take sleeping pills to force herself to get any sleep. On November 8, 2001, the Hainan High Court rejected the request for a retrial, and on March 27, 2009, the Supreme People's Court also rejected a retrial. In 2013, the same year, they were denied a retrial again, April 9, due to mental anxiety and other factors. Chen Man's father suffered from cerebral infarction and was in a coma for 7 days, although he luckily survived. During this period, Chen's friends Yao Jun and Wang Yang went public with Chen's case and launched a fundraising effort. Chen's family felt their hope restored in late 2013 and 2014. In those 2 years, numerous wrongful conviction cases were being cleared up across China, and the government officially acknowledged the issue and introduced a plan for reforms, as well as handing out documents to the various courts on how to prevent wrongful convictions. It was also in 2013 that China formally banned the practice of torturing suspects. Not that this law has been enforced all that well. This gave Chen's family hope, as well as the media attention surrounding Chen's case, putting pressure on the judiciary. On February 10, 2015, the Supreme People's Procuratorate appealed for a retrial to the Supreme People's Court, arguing that the evidence that was used to convict Chen was insufficient. On April 24, they ordered a retrial to take place. The Supreme Court's one condition was that the retrial wouldn't be held in Hainan, and ordered the Zhejiang Provincial Higher People's Court to hold the retrial. The retrial began on December 29, 2015, and the prosecutor was actually working with the defense to get Chen acquitted, since the new prosecutor didn't believe Chen was guilty either. During the trial, Chen also made sure to show the judge the scars he had on him from when the police tortured him. The damning evidence of Chen's identification work permit also was mentioned repeatedly in transcripts and evidence logs, but no crime scene photos of it appeared to have been taken, and Chen's attorneys were never shown the card. It got to the point where both the prosecution and defense began to loudly doubt that the work permit was even there to begin with. The court also believed Chen's claims that he was tortured, and thus his confession was discarded. But even if the court was willing to accept Chen's confession in spite of the torture used to extract it, the court still saw contradictions. Chen claimed the kitchen faucet was turned on, but in the police reports, it was noted that the sink was turned off. Chen said that he threw the cleaver on a quilt in Zhang's bedroom, but the police discovered it on a cutting board in the kitchen, and no bloodstains or fingerprints were found on the cleaver. The police also noted that when they entered the room, Zhang was lying face down on the ground, and Chen's false confession reflected that. However, the firefighters who responded were called to testify, and all of them stated that Zhang was lying on his back, and they rolled his body over with fire hooks while cleaning up the scene. Chen also said that he moved the body, but the firefighters told the court that they were the ones who moved it because they needed to get to and remove a refrigerator that was blocking their water hoses. Numerous witnesses also attested to Chen's alibi that he was at the construction site playing mahjong with his co-workers. Both the prosecutor and defense also discredited Chen's motive. One source referred to the case as the most harmonious court debate in history, as both the prosecution and defense took turns arguing that Chen was innocent. The court also was told how when the first trial happened, all the evidence was lost, and only the crime scene photos remained. Chen was allowed to give a statement to the court, to which he said, "I didn't kill anyone or set fire to them. I don't know anything about it. This is a fact that will never change. On December 25, 1992, I left number 109, Xingpaxia village. I have never gone back. I firmly believe that the law is just, and I firmly believe that the law will return my innocence." On February 1, 2016, Chen was acquitted with the court ruling that Chen did not have the opportunity to commit the crime, and no evidence linked him to the murder. Chen walked out the gates of Milan prison a free man after 23 years behind bars. Chen returned home to Sichuan province. On May 13, Chen was awarded 2,753,777.64 yuan in compensation. Chen had lived a relatively quiet life after his acquittal. It is known that he used his compensation money to get his driver's license and take a driver's test, purchased a 7-seater off-road vehicle so he can transport his elderly parents to the hospital and a doctor more easily and regularly, and in February 2017, invested some of his compensation into a company named OneCoin, which ended up being a pyramid scheme, prompting Chen and his mother to get the police involved. Both of Chen's parents, who worked tirelessly to prove his innocence, have now passed away, with his father passing away on August 27, 2016, and his mother passing away from illness on April 12, 2021, at the age of 88. The Hainan People's Court sincerely apologized and expressed remorse, with the vice president of the Hainan High People's Court bowing before Chen. Although Chen got to live to see a happy ending to his nightmare, there was another party involved who wasn't so lucky. After Zhang's wife Li Jingsu saw her husband's charred body, she was plagued with nightmares that lasted to the modern day. Meanwhile, his daughter Zhang Xian was also traumatized and inconsolable when she first heard of her father's death, and even stopped eating for a while. She had to drop out of university and work in the factory to support the family. The factory shut down in 2007, and none of them were able to find another full-time job, putting the family under even more financial strain. Li stated in interviews that if Zhang was still alive, he'd be able to provide a better life for the family. Li didn't know the process of his case, and believed that Chen had been executed, which Li saw as closure, and thus the only thing had left alongside her surviving family, and didn't know Chen was alive until November 2015, when a relative told her that his conviction was being appealed. When she contacted the court to ask when the retrial was going to be, she didn't get a response, and had to learn that information from a reporter who approached her for an interview. She wrote a letter to the police in haiku, saying, "We lived in calmness for 23 years, thinking the murderer had been punished severely by the law. But our wound has been torn open again," only to receive no reply. Chen also declined to meet up with them, explaining that the time is not ripe. They also received no compensation, with the exception of 3,400 yuan given to them by the factory. The last bit of information is that Li was saving up and calculating how much money it had cost to personally travel to Hainan and request in person for the police to track down the real killer of Zhang. Regrettably, this never seems to have taken place, and Zhang's murder remains unsolved.